What's up, everybody?
What's up, everybody?
Welcome back to the Mindset Mogul podcast. We're your hosts, Josh Jacobs and Bradley Mora, and we are back with another episode today, doing a Q&A. Looking forward to it. This is going to be our last episode for a little while. We're going to be taking a short break here because I'm going on my belated honeymoon and going to Europe for 2 weeks. So I'm super, super grateful for that and very, very excited. I hope you don't miss us too much. But what's going on with you, Brad? How you doing, my man?
I'm doing good. Recovering well. I'm itching to get back in the gym in like a meaningful way, but definitely woke up and like more recovered today. And I'm just like super grateful that the body works like that. You know, you mess it up and then it puts itself back together. It's a pretty amazing thing.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I'm happy you're feeling better. Hopefully by the time I'm back, you're back at 100. And yeah, dude, that's good.
Yeah, because we're trying to live at 100, and it's just like part of that is lifting heavy things. Yeah, that's right.
That is true. All right, cool. So we are going to jump into a Q&A that we have for you guys today. I just want to say, if you do get any value from this episode, please, please, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Leave us a comment with your question. You can also email that into support@mindsetmogul.com. Or you can, or actually also, not or, but also please, if you're listening on Google, Spotify, Apple, please follow us there and leave a 5-star review. We would really, really appreciate it. And with that being said, let's jump into our question for the day. It is from Chris. And it says, I'm currently working a physical and labor-intensive job on average for 50 to 60 hours a week. After spending the last 10 years in this routine, I want to start a business that will provide me with more time freedom. I recently had my first child and want to have more time to spend with him as he grows up. I know you can't tell me what business I should start, but what are some frameworks I can use to help me come up with ideas and make a decision? Chris, thank you so much for your question. Congratulations on having your first child. I appreciate you reaching out. I think the first thing that I would even consider before the first thing that pops out to me is, do you want something that's less? Do you for sure want to be a business owner, basically, is what I'm going to ask you. Do you want something that's less time intensive? Do you want something where you can spend more time with your son? Or do you want to be a business owner? Or do you want both? And the reason I say that is because, sure, you will have more control of your time running your business, but your time will definitely be consumed. Like 50 to 60 hours a week starting a business is to be expected no matter what. And sure, maybe eventually you'll be able to cut that down and start outsourcing things. But that is the first question I would ask yourself is, do you want to start a business, or do you just want a job that may be less time intensive? If you do want to start a business, I think that there are definitely some frameworks. One of the things that Brad introduced me to that I absolutely love is anti-goals. Brad, why don't you talk a little bit about that?
I think anti-goals it's a great framework for you to use when deciding what it is that you want. But instead of thinking about what it is that you want, think about what it is that you don't want in your life. What are the things, what are the non-negotiables that actually make you miserable or make you less happy or are keeping you from living the life that you want? And think about specifically what those things are. And so I think good examples are, in your case, Chris, you've got a physical and labor-intensive job. Would an anti-goal be, I don't want to be exhausted from my job every day? Is it the amount of time that you're spending? I don't want to be spending 50 to 60 hours per week on the job that it is that I'm doing. Is it that I don't have enough time to spend with my son? Obviously, the 50 to 60 hours is going to play a big part in that. Is your job close to home? Are you commuting? Are there other things that you don't want to be doing during your day that could currently consume it? And so I think not only looking at your goals for what you want in your life, but being very specific about the things that you don't want to do because you know that they'll make you unhappy is an extremely useful framework for you trying to figure out what is next. And so when you're evaluating opportunities, I think evaluate them versus not only what they'll give you, but essentially what they take away from your life. And then start using those as the criteria for, is this the right thing for me to do next? And will it give me what I actually want? Or not give me what I don't want. I don't know if that was exactly right, but I think you get the point.
Yeah, I think it's a really powerful exercise because especially if you're doing something right now that you don't want to put yourself into a situation where now you're doing what you don't want, but there's even higher stakes because, for example, it's your own business. And obviously there's higher stakes if it's your own business versus having a job or whatever the case may be.
Yeah, it's like literally doing the same thing, but just different. And then in the case of running your own business, you also may lack the financial security that the current job gives you. And you're still working 50 to 60 hours a week. And so it's not to discourage you from being a business owner, but it's just to make sure that you're asking the right questions and thinking about solutions in the right way for where you are now versus where you're going to be and want to be based on what your priorities actually are, which if it is that you want to be a business owner, I think that's an entirely different frame of reference from I want to spend time with my child as he grows up, because in order to accomplish that, I think the next steps you take, they may look the same, but they may look different depending on what type of business you can start, what type of business you have the skills for today, and what might interest you in the first place. And so...
And the other thing too is so if it is that you don't care necessarily, if the way that you're viewing being a business owner is just having time freedom and being able to spend time with your son, like I said, yes, there is the potential for that to, number one, you can potentially work from home and spend all the time with your son, but your time is still going to be consumed thinking about the business, working on the business. Maybe eventually that business will give you time freedom. But if your goal is just to spend more time with your son, then consider, can you get a job that is in a different field that lowers the amount of time you're working, or lower if you're trying to get out of something that's so labor intensive? Can you look for something that provides you remote work? One of the greatest, I'm just going to give a free plug right now. One of the greatest websites to find jobs that allow you to be flexible and remote and potentially give you the opportunity to work on something else alongside you having a job is called flexjobs.com. And basically you can get a job from tons of different companies that allow you to either work partially remote, full-time remote, and that could potentially do two things for you. One, if the only goal that you have is spending more time with your son, then boom, all of a sudden now you have this opportunity to get a job doing something else and spend more time with your son. But in addition to that, if you still want to be a business owner, it might not be a bad idea to do that anyways, because it's going to be very tough for you to start a business working 50 to 60 hours a week in a labor intensive job. You're probably tired when you come home. You probably have time, outside of those 60 hours, you got to have time to spend with your son. So if you do get a job that provides you with a little bit more time freedom, even if your goal is to be a business owner, it may make sense to do that. So that's another thing to consider.
Yeah, I think that's candidly, it's a lower risk way to get what you want if the goal is more time freedom. And it also doesn't preclude you from eventually starting a business. And if anything, is actually the right stepping stone to set you up to go start a business, because you'll have more time freedom once you are in a job that you don't have to physically be doing the thing for such an extensive period of time. And you can have the energy after work to potentially work on whatever it is that you are passionate about or want to start a business in. All that being said, if you are going to start a business, I think it's important that you consider the anti-goals that you have in terms of not wanting to work physical labor, not wanting to do it for 50 to 60 hours a week, at least in perpetuity. You want, pair that with the goals that you do have of spending time with your child. Make sure you're starting a business that can support you in your anti and your regular goals. And so things I would consider when looking at frameworks for what businesses could you start if you're going to start a business. If it's going to be a retail business, is it close to your house? Is it something that maintains normal hours from 9 to 5 so that you can, even then you're still going to have fairly long hours if you're going to be there from open to close? Is it a business model that's easy to run? Could you put a general manager in, within 6 months to a year of opening it so that you don't have to be there all the time and you can be at home with your son? Think about the actual and honestly visualize what the management of that business would look like 6 to 12 months down the road, because this is something I've discovered as I've looked into different types of business models. There are hard businesses to run and there are easy businesses to run. And I'll give a quick example. I recently was just exploring what the business model of laser hair removal looked like. And I was doing that because my parents, they've been dental office operators for the past 20 years, potentially looking into getting into an ancillary business that wasn't dentistry, still medically focused, still retail space oriented. And what we discovered is a dental office, it requires 10 to 15 people in terms of staff to be there every day. You're managing a lot more people. The types of services you provide, there's a lot of them. And so it makes it a more complicated, more difficult business to run. Not saying you should think about starting a dental office, but just as an example of like, okay, you've got business model X versus you take a look at laser hair removal. If you're only doing laser hair removal as a standalone business, and there's a lot of them that exist out there, and from what we can tell, they are successful businesses. You need 3 people to get off the ground, and you provide one service, laser hair removal. And so the actual management and operation of that business looks a lot different than running a dental office with, tens or dozens of services and a staff of 10 to 15 versus a staff of 3 and a single service. And so consider whatever business that you're going into, what is it going to take from me in terms of time? What are the hours of operations? And then how many people does it take and how complicated of a business is it to run? Because the easier ones, you're going to have a lot more time freedom once the thing is up and running. I think, juxtaposing just like the retail business as an example, obviously online businesses are going to give you a lot more, especially physical location-based freedom. It's something that you can run from your house. And so even if you are focused on it from 9 to 5 all day, immediately you're at home with your son at 5 o'clock when you decide to take your eyes off working on that business. And so at this point, educating yourself, if you're not already, on different types of online businesses, whether it's physical products, e-com, or digital products, courses, services, education businesses. Candidly, the latter is hard to get off the ground without like a skill set that you already have. But if you can figure out how to ramp up on those types of businesses, they're going to give you the most freedom in terms of where you are, and over time should give you the freedom to spend time, assuming you can get the business to a successful point. The last one I had listed was services-based businesses. I'd say these are probably the easiest to get off the ground. They probably match well with your skill set if you've been working a physically based job for a long time. I think at the outset, these types of things are probably going to be time consuming, but also same type of thing as the retail space. Is it something that you eventually can get a general manager in place where they can oversee people? It's probably something you can apply skill sets that you already have today. It's lower hanging fruit, so you can get ramped up on the business quicker. And, eventually, again, hours of operations, is this a 24/7 business, or is it something that's from 9 to 5? So you're not going to be getting phone calls, during dinner with your son. So just consider, and I would say do deep research on what is the business model and take that into serious account, because that's going to either support or not support your anti-goals.
And the other thing I'll add on top of that too is, because you're talking about your skill sets and developing skills, I do want to say that obviously it will be easier to start a business in a skill set that you already have. That being said, I also just want to give you a couple words of encouragement that if you decide you want to start a business that is completely unrelated to anything that you've been doing right now, you can build and develop any skill set that you want to with enough dedication, commitment, time put into it. So if you go through this process and your anti-goals and you can't come up with a single idea that, uses the skill set that you embody, you can go and develop a new skill set. And that realization alone is something that I realized a long time ago that was a huge realization for me. So I would say that don't be discouraged if your current skill set doesn't doesn't spark any type of idea that you can have. But your point about digital businesses is it's a really good point. Like, just to give you an example, I'm going to Europe for 2 weeks and I'm going to try not to work at all because it's my honeymoon. But if I really needed to, I could work every day from Europe. And it would be the same thing as working from here. So there's a lot of freedom in that. And if that's the route that you want to go, there are skill sets that you can build. You can literally get a YouTube university education. That's what I call it. It's like literally just going on YouTube, watching a bunch of videos for free in whatever skill set it is. Let's just say you wanted to learn Facebook ads. You could go spend 1,000 hours learning Facebook ads on YouTube and become a freaking expert and start a Facebook ads, agency and literally create a business just from what you've learned on YouTube. So I just want to, provide those little words of encouragement. If there's something out there that you feel that you want to do that you don't know how to do yet, you can figure out how to do it.
I don't know if I have really anything to add on top of that. That's a bit of a mic drop. It's 100% true. And honestly, whatever it is that you want to do next, there's probably going to be some skill building aspect to it, because it's just different from what you're doing today. And so having the growth mindset and understanding that if you apply yourself, which anyone who can work 50 to 60 hours a week in a physical and labor intensive job, Chris, I'm sure you have the work ethic. Like that's not going to be your problem. And so just reapplying some of that work ethic to skill building, it will unlock whatever it is that you want to do so that you can spend your time how you see fit going forward.
Yeah, I love that. All right, cool. Well, Chris, I hope you got something out of this. We do have an audience exercise for you and anybody else who is in this scenario. To be honest, I'm sure that there's a lot of people in this situation. So this is a great question. Thank you so much for asking it. Brad, why don't you take them through the audience exercise?
All right. So write down 3 anti-goals. What are 3 non-negotiable things that you don't want to be doing in your life? And is it spending time with people you don't like? Is it having to be somewhere you don't want to be? Is it commuting? Is it, for people who do remote work, is it being in front of a screen all day? Are these things that you don't want to be doing? Write down 3 anti-goals that you have of how you don't want to be spending your time. And then as a next step, visualize your life without these things and what it looks like. Just imagine spending your time without these things and what that will look like, and paint a picture in your mind via visualization of what that looks like. And then just start there, because that is the first step to start programming yourself to understand what a life could look like in the absence of these things, in the absence of these, or with these anti-goals.
I love it. All right, Chris, I hope you got something out of this. Guys, if you're listening and you did get value, please subscribe to the YouTube channel. Leave us a comment with your question. Email it into support@mindsetmogul.com. If you're listening on Google, Apple, Spotify, please follow, leave a 5-star review. We really, really appreciate you. Thank you so much. See you in a couple weeks when we are back, and talk to you then. Take care.
Take care.